Hello guys, what's up? So I just want to talk a little bit about powerlifting, and no, I don't hate powerlifting. Powerlifting is pretty good sport and pretty cool sport, and it is actually a really badass sport, and I'm gonna tell you why in a minute. But I believe that most of the people have a lot of misconceptions about powerlifting. Especially natural guys, they think that if you focus on powerlifting that you're actually gonna get bigger, and you will get bigger if you're only beginner and you are only starting to focus on strength. And probably you're gonna focus a lot on your technique, and if you've been training like bodybuilder before, like a bodybuilder, yes, you are gonna get bigger because you're probably gonna focus more on the key variables that bring you actually results, which are volume, frequency and intensity. But to say that strictly powerlifting training or strictly training for strength, which is increasing your 1 rep max, is better for hypertrophy than the hypertrophy training itself isn't true. I understand that most people, when they are doing bodybuilding, they actually are not doing optimal training for hypertrophy, but optimal training for hypertrophy is more optimal for hypertrophy than optimal training for strength, if that does make sense. And also, if somebody say to you, but what about those jack powerlifters? First of all, it's mainly genetics. I'm not gonna cover here genetics. I can talk about genetics for 3 hours or more, because I really focused on genetics because I'm 192 centimeters tall. I am 6'3.5". So I know a lot about genetics. But first of all, mainly genetics dictates how you look and body fat. The other thing is that also powerlifters have certain periods of time when they focus on hypertrophy or volume training or muscle building training. So they have phases of training which last around, it depends how often they compete, last about maybe 1 month to even 5 months if they are beginners. Beginner powerlifter has to focus on hypertrophy the most because they have to grow, because mass moves mass, period. If you don't understand that, you can look how much weight, you can look for world records in 75 kilo class in powerlifting, and you can look world records in 120 plus kilo class. I believe that 120 kilo or 120 kilo plus classes bench a lot more than 75 kilos. So relative strength is another thing, but ultimately mass moves mass, and that's it. The whole purpose of muscle building in powerlifting is to move more weight, and after that they focus on strength training and on before competition on picking. So there is such a thing as training specifically for mass and specifically for strength. And another thing, you can now just, if you've been training like a bodybuilder for I don't know how long, and you just leave bodybuilding training and just specifically start to focus on strength training, specifically for bench, deadlift and squat. And you just do 1 month or 2 months of picking, and you previously did a lot more volume, and you now start to focus specifically on strength, so specifically for picking, you will actually get smaller. Your 1 rep max will probably go up temporarily, but you will get smaller. And why is that? That's because strength is mainly tied to neurological gains, or kind of your nervous system, so, and technique. So you can get stronger just by working on technique. And actually, when you try to move more weight with better technique, that means less stress on your muscles. Yes, ultimately you're lifting more weight, of course, but there are a lot of people that are actually small but they are strong as fuck. They're really strong. I know a guy, I don't know what his name is. He's also on YouTube. He's like 155 pounds heavy, and he benches like 410 pounds or 420 even. I'm a big dude. Currently I'm 245 pounds, and I can bench like 330, something between 330 and 350. And yes, I am fucking natural. But I've been focusing more on kind of like power building training, not so much strength training, because I know how strength training is taxing on your body, and a lot of people don't actually understand how powerlifting is not good for your body at all, because you're focusing only on 3 lifts, you're focusing specifically on strength, and you're always taxing more your joints than your muscles. And if you don't believe me, you can ask any elite powerlifter or anybody who has a lot of experience in powerlifting. I've been training for 12 years. I think I know what I'm talking about when I say that strength training is really taxing on your body. You will probably, when you are really pushing it, you are gonna feel like shit most of the day. You're gonna feel really tired. Even if you're doing even if your programming is really good, if your recovery is really good, if you're eating really good, you're probably gonna feel like shit, because you're pushing your body really to the limits on really heavy and demanding exercises like bench, overhead press, rows, deadlift, and which is another point. Most people believe that you actually have to do deadlift or bench or squat for bigger quads, for bigger back, for bigger chest. And of course you have to do some variation of bench to have bigger chest, but you don't have to do specifically competition powerlifting bench. If you do competition powerlifting bench, you're gonna purposely decrease the range of motion, and you're purposely gonna put more stress on some other areas than your chest, because you want to maximize the amount of weight you're lifting. You don't want to maximize, in powerlifting, you don't want to maximize the tension on your chest, because if you do that, you're gonna fucking rip your chest out. And deadlifting, why deadlifting actually isn't okay, so we are not talking about that. So why deadlifting isn't actually good for your hypertrophy training? Because when you get really strong on deadlift, I mean, I'm specifically talented in deadlift. I currently just deadlifted 221 and a half or 220 kilos, let's just say 220 kilos. I deadlifted for 10 reps, which is 485 to 487 pounds for 10 reps. So in this year, my goal previously, when I started this year, was to lift 290 kilos, which is 650 or 640 pounds, something like that. And I don't really know if I'm really gonna do it, because deadlifting taxes my body so much, and I do it only once per week. And when I have heavy sets like that, so only one set, if I do it really heavy like that, basically trashes my whole training. So if you want to train specifically for hypertrophy and you are pushing heavy deadlifts, you are gonna be so much fatigued that your body actually can't recover to maximize your muscle gains. Of course, I'm gonna say it another time, you will get bigger if you focus on strength. But if you focus specifically on hypertrophy, like specifically, you will get bigger, much bigger than when you are focusing on strength. That's just simple principle of specificity. Your body adapts to stimulus you are giving it to, and the more volume you are doing, the more stress you are putting on your muscles, not on your joints, the more you're gonna get bigger. And the better recovery you have, the bigger you're gonna get. And deadlift and squat and heavy benches with partial range of motion will affect your recovery. So if you don't know how to train specifically for hypertrophy to get bigger, I know a few things about that because I've been lifting for 12 years and I basically tested every workout there is. And stay tuned, I'm gonna talk a lot more about it, probably. Of course I'm gonna do it. And that's it. See you guys. One more double biceps and peace out.